Hi everybody, I hope you're all doing well today. I'm going to talk to you in this video about choosing a topic, which may well be the most difficult part of your research project. To choose a topic, first of all, we have to think about what we're choosing it for. In this case, it's a research project. So, what is research? When we talk about research, what we're talking about is a systematic answer to a question or a problem. It can also be analysis of an issue, but usually with a solution in mind. It's not simply talking about something or discussing something. That would be more like an opinion essay. So this is a research project that we're doing, and it's not easy to come up with a good topic. We'll discuss what you need to do to get the topic, but it can be very difficult, and it may even be the most difficult part, because once you've got your topic, the rest of it is fairly easy. It's important to remember that while you're searching for your topic, while you're developing your topic, that this is research. So your topic should be interesting and practical, and you will need then to find the research question that is related to the topic. So topics have a tendency to be broad, and research questions are specific. For example, if you wanted to investigate teaching young learners, your research question might be, what are the most effective ways to teach vocabulary to learners who are between the ages of 4 and 7? Do you see how that gets very specific in there? When you're looking at topics, one of the things you have to consider is this a really good researchable question? In this case, we're looking at vocabulary acquisition and young learners. So it's kind of where two ideas or two theories come together. That's usually a good thing to research. A topic is usually researchable if it's debatable. In other words, if it's possible to disagree with the topic. You want a topic where there's been some research done and that will be interesting to you and to other people. Okay, so what do we mean researchable? Well, can you get the answer without research? I mean, do you kind of know the answer? Can you just ask people? Then it's not really researchable. If it's obvious, if the answer is obvious, then it's not researchable. If there's no, if you have to collect primary data on these things, then it's really not a researchable question. If there's usually only one answer and the answer is very simple, then that's not really researchable. For example, what color are polar bears? Okay, that's not a very researchable question. The answer is simple, and there's really no research to be done on it. But if you want to do something along the lines of what is the impact of global warming on the habitat in which polar bears live, then that's a more researchable item. Will you get a list of answers, and then how big is that list? You know, a few answers might be okay, but if it's a whole list of answers, for example, why don't people quit smoking? I mean, each person may have a different reason, you know, and so there's different, too many answers to that question. There needs to be some information out there. So some research should have been done on it, but not tons and tons and tons of information. Issues in ELT such as critical age hypothesis. I mean, that is really what we call a mature body of research. In other words, it's been pretty much established. That there is a critical age, and that, you know, beyond that age, the learning changes. How people learn changes. As a matter of fact, there's several critical ages, and these have been pretty well established through a variety of research. So there's tons of stuff out there on the critical age hypothesis. There's no reason to revisit again. What you're looking for when you do research is you want something that will support your opinion. So, for example, I may have an opinion on the best way to teach vocabulary to young learners, but that opinion is kind of based on like experience, or just kind of, you know, reading a few books, not really an in-depth research. So I want to support my concept of vocabulary learning for young learners through research, and that makes a good research question. Okay, so what's your topic? First of all, try brainstorming. I mean, just come up with something. You know, throw a whole bunch of ideas out there, get them on paper, talk about them. Then after you talk about them, start doing a little reading. This is kind of the Wikipedia phase, you know. I mean, people say don't use Wikipedia in research. Okay, fine, I got that. It's not a reliable source, blah, blah, blah. But Wikipedia is not so bad. There's a lot of good stuff out there. It can start to give you some direction. So if you say you have an interest in working with dyslexia, then you'll want to start reading about it. Get to Wikipedia. What do we do with dyslexia in L2 learning? And a lot of times the L2 classes, the ELT classes are not really equipped to deal with someone who has an issue like dyslexia. But how can we teach these people English? And so go to Wikipedia, start going to the internet, start finding things, do some general background reading. What is dyslexia? How does it work? And then get a little information, do some more brainstorming. What is it that I'm finding? What is this? What is interesting and what is not? And then kind of start going in a direction, do a little bit more reading, and you start to come up with a topic. So do you see what I'm saying? Finding your topic is doing research. It's not like you find your topic and then you do research. You kind of start doing this broad, general research and develop your topic as you start doing it. Research starts very general and ends up very specific. So when you're in the topic phase, you're in this very general kind of exploratory phase. You get it down, make a list of things that you see interesting, and then look at these things on the list. Now, which one of these items is the most researchable? Which one of these items is debatable, that people might not really be sure about? And then which one has enough information available on it, but not too much? And, deciding your topic, it's part of the process, and the topic and the research question may change, and that happens a lot, and that's normal. So be open to that. Be open to finding new things, and being open to, as you start doing, you say, okay, this is my topic, this is my research question, we get it written down, and then 3 weeks later, you send me an email and you say, hey, I got into this thing and I think it's really interesting and I want to kind of change, and I'll write back to you and say, sure, go for it. So, it's part of the process. It's not set here to lock you in. It's set to get you started. Okay? So this is what you do. You get your general idea. Then you do some background research, the Wikipedia stage, if you will. Refine that idea. Look at it until you really are sure about an aspect that's researchable. Then you really develop your research question. This is the point where you start doing the deeper research. So, but don't get worried about it if things change as you go along. It's a normal part of it. Okay? Are we starting to get an idea of how to get a topic? Okay. If you're still lost at this point, just try Googling ELT or English language teaching. One of the good places to look for ideas is in course descriptions. What are they trying to teach you in ELT courses? What are some ELT courses that are coming up next year that you might have some questions about now? You can do some kind of research and kind of get ready for those courses. Talk to your friends. Ask your mom or anybody who doesn't know about ELT what they think about ELT. What is it interesting about ELT to them? Textbooks, a lot of times, especially at the ends of chapters, have good ideas. So when you're finding your topic, you're already researching. Use all the tools you have and work on it, and I'm sure you can come up with a nice topic. Okay, and then you have to get your research question, okay? So this is a SMART question: specific, measurable, approachable, appropriate, realistic, and timely. So your research question should be fairly specific, not too specific, but pretty specific, so you're not doing research about everything. You don't want to have a research question that's something like, what is second language acquisition? So have it be much more specific, and it needs to have some measure in it, or it helps to have a measure of some type in it. How does extensive reading affect vocabulary acquisition? And then your measurement there is going to be a vocabulary test. You have some kids who are doing extensive reading, kids who are not, and then you have a vocabulary test. Or you can look at these things. You can look at research that has investigated this. You need to make sure it's appropriate, that it's within the realm of ELT, and that it is something that fits into our curriculum here at MEF. It needs to be realistic. In other words, you're not writing a book and it's not like a few paragraphs. You need something that you can do within the time frame of this course, and that it needs to be appropriate to the constraints that we have, which is, make it realistic, something that's doable. Timely in that you need to be looking at some of the current trends in research, psycholinguistics, corpus linguistics, rhetorical analysis, genre analysis. These are all good areas. But in almost every topic you can think of, there's research going on right now that is interesting, and so we want to kind of hit that kind of area. What's the research going on right now in the area that you're interested in? Once you got your question, the question is what really drives the research, not so much the topic. Okay, so when you have your research question, when you're looking at research, you're kind of doing one of four things. You're either defining or measuring a specific fact, or you're trying to understand some type of phenomena. So you want to do some research on this, like how does this work type of a research. There's another type of research where you're matching facts with the theory. So you have this theory, you understand a theory, and you want to see facts that support it. So you're researching facts that will support the theory. You can also evaluate and compare two theories, two models, or different hypotheses, which is a nice research project as well. You can also prove that a certain method is more effective than other methods. That might be a little hard to do in our research project because we're doing secondary research. So, to review, your research topic is your starting point. Don't get too hung up on having to do this perfect research topic with this perfect research question, but you gotta get started, okay? So get your topic, start reading on it, keep refining your topic, start getting more in-depth and in-depth slowly as we go. And if there's any way I can help you, please let me know. Thanks. Bye-bye.